Welcome to Copyright Office Presents, sharing our story through food and copyright. I'm Lisa Marklack with the U.S. Copyright Office, and I'm here in my favorite place in the house, the kitchen. Whether it's the smell of freshly baked bread or watching easy-to-follow recipes on YouTube, food is a gateway to my own creativity and connects me to my family even when we can't be together. So let's explore how food is connected to creativity and copyright. It's my pleasure to introduce two creators who have harnessed social media to share their passion for food, family, and culture. Bryan Ford has developed simple and fun ways to create bread at home through recipes inspired by his Honduran heritage. He's a blogger and author of New World Sourdough and is the star of the Artisan's Kitchen on the Magnolia Network. Adam Ragusea combined his passion for journalism, teaching, and at-home cooking to create his own YouTube channel, which has over 345 million views. He develops approachable recipes and explains the science of food using a direct and comedic approach. Jalen Johnson, an attorney advisor at the U.S. Copyright Office, will serve as moderator. At the end of the discussion, we will be fielding questions from the audience. Please use the question and answer box at the bottom of the screen. The presentation will be closed captioned, and you can turn on the closed captions at the bottom of the screen as well. So sit back and get inspired on what you'll make next as we hear from our first presenter, Bryan Ford.
Hello, hi, how are you guys doing? I'm Bryan Ford, author of New World Sourdough, baker, blogger, writer, whatever it is that you'd like to call me these days. And I'm here to talk to you guys about a little bit of what my journey and my story with regards to food has been. So let's get started. I have a little presentation for you guys. I'm going to walk you through a few pictures that kind of mean the world to me, really, and it kind of shows you how I went from conceptualizing this dream and this journey to actually putting it into place and making it a reality through recipes and storytelling. So if we could get to that first slide, that'd be great. All right, so what you're looking at here is it's a king cake. All right, I'm from New Orleans, and if you've ever been to New Orleans, I have a feeling that maybe a few of you guys have been to New Orleans and probably had some fun during Mardi Gras. King cake's a traditional baked good, and it's one of the first, I think it is really the first baked good I properly learned how to make. And at the time, I was working as a cook. So I started as a cook, as a chef at various restaurants in New Orleans to help pay my bills, help pay my tuition, that kind of thing, support the family. But it's late nights, it's a lot of late nights, a lot of stress to work in restaurant kitchens. And I started to find this release in baking. And so one of the first things I ever baked was a king cake. And I think it is just it's to me is symbolic, not just of the carnival season in New Orleans, but to me it's a very special pastry because of that fact. And even looking at that picture, it's one of the first king cakes I sold professionally. So that it's a nice one there. All right, so that's just a little bit of context as to how I started to think about baking as not just something I eat at a bakery, but something I do to share with others. So again, next slide, please. I'm working restaurants. I graduate with an accounting degree, and I actually become an accountant. I become a CPA. So what you see here is actually my license to practice accounting as a certified public accountant. And I was working as a tax manager and doing a lot of random work like that, building up a nice business acumen and a nice skill set. But all the while I'm practicing my baking still, and really I'm like in love with baking and cooking, and something just didn't feel right. But that picture's actually at my mom's house. She's got a copy of my books and a copy of the license. I thought it was nice to kind of contrast the different paths that I've taken. So yeah, next slide, please. So that brings me here, the very first loaf of sourdough I ever baked. So we're fast forwarding a little bit. I'm a CPA. I just decide I cannot do this anymore. And I decided to take a leap of faith. moved to a different city. I moved to Miami for a while, and I really started to cultivate this craft of baking. And I really started to think about it from a business perspective. I started to think about recipes as a tool and a mechanism to engage with different communities, not just where I lived, but all over the world. So that right there is the first loaf of sourdough I made, I think 5 years ago or something like that. It must have been in 2016, I think it was. And again, very, very special, very important picture, because it really showed the growth and the level that I was trying to achieve in terms of how I baked. So if we can get to the next slide. All right, enter LeSage Bakery. I decided to go for it, and I opened up a little wholesale bakery in Miami. It only lasted about 8 months, maybe a year, if I'm being generous to myself. But and that's where I really put my accounting skill set to use. Just dealing with overhead costs, dealing with rent, and dealing with all kinds of challenges that come with opening a bakery. And it was wholesale only. I was not doing any retail, thankfully, renting a commercial kitchen space. But, I gave it a shot. It was my first little project. The first time I kind of went out there and really sold bread. I was making specifically European inspired stuff still. I wasn't really tapping that much into my Latin American heritage yet, because I was trying to follow that traditional model of what an artisan bakery was. So a lot of rustic loaves. I did do a plantain loaf, a plátano loaf. I did have a little bit of an idea that, hey, I want to move in that direction, but it was mostly croissants and baguettes and traditional rustic loaves. Next slide. I can't believe I sent this picture. That's kind of funny. Moving into the next phase of building my business, after I kind of shuttered this wholesale bakery, I started doing pizza pop-ups with Uni ovens. Actually, I work for Uni as an ambassador for their pizza ovens, and I started to use them for pop-ups around the city of Miami. And I started to kind of grow this little reputation for being that guy that makes like really nice sourdough pizza and sourdough bread that he can give you on the side, pulling up for a pizza party. Again, just trying to like churn that engine in terms of like, okay, I did this wholesale bakery, that didn't work. I don't know that I want to do a retail bakery, because that's even harder than a wholesale bakery. How else can I build this brand? How else can I build and use my skill sets to feed people and to cook for people and to create recipes? So I started doing pizza pop-ups in the city of Miami, and that really is when things kind of took a fun direction. Next slide. All right. Again, I'm hitting you guys with a lot of firsts. All right, that's the very first loaf of pan de coco that I made with sourdough. And it was very important because when I posted that to social media, people didn't really know how to react. And at the time I was typically posting, a baguette or a crumb shot or a croissant or a, rustic loaf, pizza, focaccia, familiar things that make sense. Oh, that's sourdough. That makes sense. And then when I posted this video opening up this very, very delicate loaf of pan de coco, my following just kind of started to explode, and people started to pay attention, and they were like, where's the recipe? Where's the recipe? And I was like, well, I thought I put the recipe in the post, but someone was like, Bryan, you need to create a blog. You need to create a website. And this is about 2018, I think it was. And I was like, well, shoot, yeah, I guess I should create a blog. And so sure enough, I create this blog. I launched it a month after this post. I had no idea what I was doing. And this recipe just took off like wildfire. And that's when I really got into my groove of like, oh, let me start making, pan cubano. Let me start making more Latin American inspired baked goods. Next slide. Yeah, again, that's actually just the delicate, soft interior of that pan de coco. Believe it or not, that is 100% sourdough. And a lot of people don't, just to kind of sidetrack into the culinary element here, a lot of people, they think of sourdough specifically as one type of bread that should have an interior and exterior that looks a specific way. But I really, for the home baker and for a lot of this kind of bread baking Instagram community, I really kind of showed a different approach to using sourdough starter. Next slide. All right, so there I am again. I am fully immersed in brand building with Uni. I'm creating content. The blog is kind of taking off. I'm smiling pretty big there. I'm looking kind of happy because it's been at this point 2.5 years since I moved from New Orleans to Miami. And all the while I'm like, doing odd jobs, doing these pop-ups, trying to figure it out. finally, I'm getting some traction and being consistent with what I do. And I'm making different recipes for different brands. I'm making different recipes for my blog. And then I'm starting to think about, oh, okay, maybe there could be a cookbook situation happening soon. Next slide. All right, so there's Sullivan Street Bakery. I'm working, getting some real, this is probably the realest baking experience I've ever had, to be completely honest, in Miami. So I'm doing all of these things, but at the end of the day, I'm not, a blog doesn't make you money until you put ad revenue on it. And the brands I'm working with, they're not paying me top dollar yet. I don't have a crazy amount of followers yet. So I was like, well, do I go back to being an accountant? And that happened to me quite a few times. I would freelance in project management, or I would freelance doing tax returns. And there was actually like a 6-month period where I kind of just gave up on all this baking thing. I was just like, this is ridiculous. I need to go back and get a job and get health insurance, which I still don't have, by the way. Sorry. But it does a little comedic relief for you. But yeah, I mean, here I am. I'm like, I got to make some money consistently. And I decided to take a job for like, it's $15 an hour. It's, coming from accounting, you're making a 6-figure salary, to just being able to say, you know what, I'm going to take this $15 an hour. I'm going to continue growing my presence online. I'm going to continue creating recipes and really being a creative and an artist in this game. That's really when I realized that I was meant to do this. Like the very late nights, overnight shifts here in this bakery. You can see that rack behind us, all those pizza biancas that have to be shaped. Like, it's a lot of manual labor, but it's worth it, and it's worth every penny of it. Every second that I spent in this bakery building this experience while cultivating my own brand on the side. Next slide. So enter the Sourdough Podcast. I was so fortunate to be invited on the Sourdough Podcast during this period, because this is how I got my first book deal. The publishing company reached out to me after hearing this out of the blue. I mean, I wasn't really working on a book proposal, but I did think about it. And he's just like, hey, you should, there's really something going on here. Because on the podcast, I'm talking about my culture, my family, my roots, my traditions, and how I want to start using sourdough differently. And, within a couple of weeks, I get this offer to do a book, and I take it and I run with it. So next slide, please. And there it is, New World Sourdough. That's a proud picture, by the way, guys. I'm very proud even looking at that. It's kind of strange to look at myself, but yeah, this is pre-pandemic. This book is born. I got some comments once. It's like, oh, you guys just rushed to make this book during the pandemic. I'm like, absolutely not. That's not how it works. Creating a cookbook is a long process, and the publication date was picked well in advance of any semblances of a pandemic. So, I take this book deal, I make New World Sourdough, and in the book it's 35 recipes that, I'm talking about my culture in New Orleans. I'm talking about my culture in Latin America. So I've got recipes in there like the bananas Foster sourdough, which is really fun. I've got recipes like pecan praline monkey bread. I've got 2 types of pan de coco. I've got pan de agua from Puerto Rico. I've got different cultural elements all using sourdough. And it was just, I didn't think anyone would buy it. Honestly, I was like, whatever, this is cool. Hey, mom, I made a cookbook. This is great. I'm going to sell 10, 20 copies, 100 copies, 1,000 copies, and I'll be happy. Little did I know, people all over the world are using this book, and it's still very surreal to me. Next slide. All right. This is a pop-up with Jim Leahy at Sullivan Street. Well, after my book is published, after people start to notice that, I'm already, at this point, I've already got a second book deal in the works and a TV show in the works. And I'm like, okay, this is all cool. It's cool to give recipes online. It's cool to kind of talk about it, make videos on Instagram and blog about it, blah, blah, blah. But what's even cooler than that is to feed people. And so I want to tap into my roots again of baking for people. How do I do that without incurring the crazy overhead costs of having my own place and the stress and the time commitment? I'll do pop-ups. I'm friends with so many different bakers now that all I have to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, let's do a pop-up. Like, for example, this Sunday in New York City, I'm at Mel the Bakery doing a pan de muerto pop-up. And it's great because it allows me to connect with the community, and it allows me to get my hands in a lot of dough and bake a lot of dough All the while, I'm working on my other projects, like my second book, my podcast, my TV show endeavors, my production company endeavors. So this was my first pop-up in New York City, which is, and doing it at Sullivan Street, where I used to work, albeit the Miami location, was pretty cool. And I became friends with Jim Leahy, who's a pretty legendary baker in the United States. Next slide. Enter the Artisan's Kitchen. I'm coming full circle. I just filmed this show in January. So, I've made this crazy leap of faith, really, that didn't make any sense to actually do. And it turned into having a lot of different media endeavors going at the same time. And I think a lot of it can be luck. A lot of it's hard work. I don't know what it was, but it was random. I had no clue. I'd never envisioned myself having my own cooking show and making more TV. I was reached out to my partner, who's my girlfriend, actually, and we actually work together now, but she's the one that developed this show. And we have developed a really close relationship together to make our own production company, Flaky Biscuit Media. And we're doing a lot of different, audio visual projects that are, that's like my new thing now. It's like, wow, I went from just writing one book to writing 2 books to having my own show to now being a producer and trying to make other shows, getting on podcasts, trying to produce those as well. And really just, I'm thinking about this. This is a business, at the end of the day. How can I keep my brand afloat and tap into different sensory elements, whether it's a pop-up where you can physically eat, smell, taste, touch, a recipe where you can make it yourself, or can you watch me? Can you listen to me? Can I direct you to do, so it's just evolving this brand into something else. Next slide. And so just to specifically talk about my show, The Artisan's Kitchen, I was very fortunate to have a show greenlit and made for Magnolia Network, which streams on Discovery Plus. And, that's a little snapshot of the things I did. I think I'm trying to see what exactly I'm holding in my hand. I think that's the breakfast galette, which has refried beans, eggs, very Honduran style ingredients. There's a rustic sourdough loaf, some beignets, lots of fun recipes there. So if you guys haven't checked it out, Magnolia Network's a new TV network, and I'm very, very proud to and fortunate to be a part of it.
Great, thanks, Bryan. So next we will move to our next presenter, Adam Ragusea.
Cool, awesome stuff, Bryan. Kind of cocoa, got to do that. Hi, so I'm Adam Ragusea. I'm not like a real baker or anything. I just cook in my kitchen, and lots of people on the internet watch it, which is cool. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how what I do intersects with conundra of intellectual property. In my current career as a professional YouTuber, I am constantly grappling with questions of copyright and IP, though fortunately for me, those questions are usually ethical in nature rather than being practical or legal. I stumbled into internet fame doing something that is not particularly fraught with copyright problems, namely cooking. And as we all know, recipes are not copyrightable. The words and the sounds and the pictures through which we express our recipes are copyrightable, but not the formulations themselves. I have a few friends who make their living on YouTube doing musical analysis and criticism. I am a composer by training, and I could have just as easily stumbled into music YouTubing, and I'm thankful every day that I did not. Music YouTubers live in constant fear that a dubious YouTube copyright claim will deprive them of their livelihood at any moment, despite the fact that their works of analysis and criticism are exactly what Congress had in mind when they codified fair use. But anyway, compared to music YouTubers, I, as a food YouTuber, I have it very lucky. And I'm just going to get one of my, I'm going to get my latest recipe video playing in the background, just so you can kind of see what I do if you're not familiar. You're actually getting a preview here. This is a mushroom soup recipe that is going to go live tomorrow. Stand by 1 second. So yeah, I'll just have this going in the background a little bit and you can see what I do. When I am doing this on YouTube, if I make a mistake with regards to a question of ownership, the worst case scenario for me is that I will look like a jerk. Not that my channel may be demonetized or that I may be successfully sued. Nonetheless, I still don't want to look like a jerk, or much more importantly, I don't want to actually be a jerk. So I have to grapple with questions of who owns a recipe? What can I take from it? To whom do I give credit? What is credit? Acknowledgement or money? or both, or something else? My basic workflow for developing a recipe for my channel usually begins with me scouring the internet and reading dozens and dozens and dozens of recipes for the thing that I plan to cook. I jot down what look like good ideas. I synthesize several from many sources into a single draft recipe, and then I start trying it out in the kitchen. I tweak things. I usually try to simplify the ingredients or the quantities. I try to nudge things toward nice round numbers. I try to streamline the workflow. I obviously adjust things for my own taste. And at the end of that, I have a recipe. And some recipes that I've done are more novel than others. I do owe attribution to some recipe writers sometimes, and other times I'm not so sure. Do I owe attribution to all of those recipe writers whose work informed my own? This is a question that is particularly fraught, given that I'm not just a guy who brings his famous cookies to the office party every year to great acclaim. The stakes are a little bit higher here. Come back to my face. Sure you missed it. No, the stakes are higher with what I do here because literally millions of people consume my recipes on the internet, and my recipes are part of a small but successful commercial enterprise that we run here. This quandary is very similar to one that I used to deal with all the time in my old life as a reporter. I worked as a full-time reporter from 2006 when I left music school until 2014 when I started teaching journalism at Mercer University. And even then I was still a reporter until my YouTube career just kind of dropped in my lap in 2018. In journalism, we have a similar quandary to the recipe quandary, and that is the fact quandary. One cannot copyright a fact. You can claim copyright on the words and the sounds and the pictures with which you express those facts, but in journalism, those are merely derivatives of the underlying asset, which is the fact you are reporting. And that asset is owned by no one, at least not legally. If you're a journalist, can you report a fact that someone else discovered? Legally, sure. Ethically, maybe? In many cases, the ethical question is obviated by the epistemological question. We're only supposed to report things that we know to be true. And if News 5 Cleveland is reporting that Euclid Avenue is closed through downtown due to an accident, do I know that to be true? No, what I know is that they are reporting it. So all I can say is News 5 Cleveland is reporting that Euclid Avenue is closed through downtown. The ethical question in that instance is obviated by the epistemological one. The only thing I know includes the attribution by its very nature. The attribution is baked in the cake, as it were. However, in journalism, you often get tipped off to an important story by a competing news outlet reporting that story. And if it's a really big story, you may aggregate your competitor's claim, attributing it to them, until you can independently verify that claim yourself. If I'm in Cleveland, I can go over to Euclid Avenue and I can have a look for myself. Or if I'm not there, I can look online at the traffic advisories from the Ohio Department of Transportation. I can search Euclid Avenue on social media and look for recent posts from frustrated commuters. I can verify that claim with multiple sources. And if I can do that, I may then feel comfortable reporting that claim without attribution. It has become a fact that I know to the extent that anyone can truly know anything. But an ethical question remains. Is it rude for me to not acknowledge that News 5 Cleveland had it first? Maybe not with something that's happening right out in the open for thousands of people to see, but what if it's not a traffic jam? What if it's an investigation that the Cleveland Plain dealer has been working on for months? Dozens of open records requests and painstakingly cultivating confidential sources, all revealing that some city official is corrupt. Even if I get my own sources to verify the claim, I think it's rude for me to not say something like, the allegation, first reported by the Cleveland Plain dealer, is that city councilor derp-de-derp-de-derp. Indeed, it is common in the news business to provide such courtesy attributions, at least in the early days of a story. Once there's a court case and public statements made by all parties involved, the allegation becomes widespread public knowledge, it's a matter of public record, then it becomes less and less ethically important to give the plain dealer credit every time you talk about a story that they originally broke. That is my personal opinion, and it is also the manifest consensus opinion of the news industry, or what remains of that industry today. So it's all very similar with recipes. And I'll give you an example of a recipe for demi-glace that I posted on YouTube a couple of years ago. I'll get that playing in the background here, and you can just have a look. There it is. There's the demi-glace. So yeah, 2.9 million views on this sucker, it looks like now. Who owns demi-glace? Nobody legally, of course, but what about ethically? Some people might say Escoffier owns it. For those who might not know, Georges-Auguste Escoffier was the leading chef in Paris and London around the turn of the 20th century, and his books codified a number of French culinary practices, most notably the system of mother sauces from which demi-glace is derived. I could have attributed my demi-glace recipe to Escoffier, but there are a number of problems with that. First of all, we all know that the person who popularizes a technique is not necessarily the originator of that technique. The popularizer is generally someone of sufficient socioeconomic status that they can get noticed, while the originator is not. Escoffier didn't invent demi-glace. He invented his own take on it, and he popularized it, but attributing the popularizer often serves to contribute to the erasure of the originator. Of course, then we run into the epistemological problem. I don't know who invented demi-glace. I only know whom I heard about it from. There's another problem in determining who gets the credit, and that is that the way you see me making demi-glace right there would be totally unrecognizable to Escoffier as demi-glace. Escoffier's demi-glace was a mixture of highly reduced brown stock and sauce espagnole, strained and then finished with a little sherry. But here's the thing, nobody makes sauce espagnole anymore. Do I know that to be true? No, I don't. I only know it from a book that I'm going to go over here and get right now. I do not know that nobody makes sauce espagnole anymore. I only know that Anthony Bourdain said so in his first cookbook. So I attributed that claim to him in my video about demi-glace. I do know that I've seen lots of chefs make demi-glace both in real life and on TV. And generally what they do is roast veal bones and joints with some onions and such. They simmer all of that for a very long time, strain, defat, and reduce the stock until it's almost the texture of a glaze, a demi-glace, a partial glaze. Do I owe attribution to all of the cooking shows and chefs that I've watched through the years that led me to that conclusion? Well, I couldn't possibly remember them all. Plus, I don't think any of them owned the idea either. They all got it from somebody else. What I do know is that some years ago, I watched a video by the OG food YouTuber, Chef John of foodwishes.com. He's the first. He'll be here long after we're all gone. And in this video, Chef John talked about how one can imitate the flavor and the collagen content of veal joints with the much less expensive combination of chicken wings and beef shanks. That combination is, as best as I can tell, novel to Chef John's recipe. I can't find it written down anywhere else on the internet before him. That doesn't mean that he didn't get the idea from somewhere else, though, and attributing the popularizer often serves to contribute to the marginalization and erasure of the originator. But what else can you do if you cannot identify the originator? To my mind, Chef John's meat swap idea was sufficiently novel as to warrant some kind of ownership. I had to make that judgment in the same way that the folks over at the patent office have to make a judgment about which inventions are sufficiently novel as to be patentable. All such judgments are inherently arbitrary, and we make them nonetheless because we have to. And when I did my demi-glace recipe, which includes several deviations from Chef John's recipe, things that I worked out myself, I nonetheless gave him credit. Of course, I also made money with that recipe. Am I a jerk for not sending Chef John a check? Maybe. But did the recipe make money, or did the video make money? The video is entirely my creation. No one would dispute that. To what extent is its value derived from the underlying recipe? I could have done a totally different recipe for demi-glace, and the video probably still would have made me a bunch of money. In fact, subsequent recipes that I've done for different kinds of demi-glace have done so. I also don't feel particularly obligated to send Chef John a check because he's doing pretty good in the YouTube economy himself. I doubt he's hurting. And by linking his video and promoting him in mine, I probably contributed a bit to his chunk of the YouTube economy. But when I posted a recipe for blueberry yum yum passed on to me by a lady named Brenda Savadova of Macon, Georgia, I not only gave her credit, I also paid her some money. She didn't ask, I just sent her a check. I'm going to share that video with you silently here so you can see Brenda. Cool lady. All right, there's the blueberry yum yum. And she didn't invent blueberry yum yum. She got the recipe from somebody else. but I don't know who invented it. I only know that I got it from I only know that I got it from Brenda, and I did not change it much from the version that she gave me. So I felt I should give her both symbolic and substantive credit, mention and money. Of course, Brenda isn't one of the dozens of recipe bylines on the internet from whom I have gleaned my first draft of many a recipe. She's a person I know, a person with whom I shared a room. I naturally felt more social obligation to her than I do to the dozens of online recipe writers whose work I've consulted on other projects. Is that a good reason for me to give her credit and not them? Not so sure about that. The standard I've usually applied to them, the anonymous recipe writers on the internet whose work I consult on most projects, the standard I usually apply to them is the same novelty standard that I talked about with regard to Chef John. If I can determine that somebody seems to be the first person to have written down an idea that I deem novel, I give them credit in my video. Symbolic credit, attribution, no cash. Is that enough? And is my system for determining novelty sufficient? I don't know. I appreciate the opportunity for reflection with which this occasion has provided me. And back to you, Jalen.
Thanks so much, Adam, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you to Bryan as well. And if the both of you can have your cameras on, and now we'll sort of, I guess, have a conversation, talk a little bit more, dig into some of what your creative process is, your inspirations. And we also have time for questions from the audience. We actually already have a few lined up. So I think we'll probably try to incorporate some of those into our conversation. So I'll start off, I guess, the question and answer section with a question for both of you. And so, Adam, you definitely touched on this in your presentation. And so if people didn't know before, they know now that copyright doesn't actually protect a recipe itself, although it may protect, depending on the level of creativity, the words explaining the recipe or the images or videos that illustrate the recipe or the steps or the final dishes, etc. So knowing this, understanding this, how important is it for you both as creators to sort of get the right image or to say the right words, if you will? So how important are the images and the words to you when you're showcasing your work and talking about the recipes? And maybe we can start with Bryan.
Oh, yes. Start with Bryan. Yes, I'm still here and available, guys. Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, there's only a few ways to make bread. You can't really reinvent the wheel here. It's been made for thousands and thousands of years. You know, there's there's only so many ways you can do it. And I think that's the part where creativity comes in via the, you know, images or video or delivery. What is the delivery mechanism that I'm using to show you how I make bread? You know, because even looking at this image here that we've got the questions answers, it's an image of some dough and it's an image of some hands sprinkling flour on dough. I don't know who that person is in that picture, but that's the same thing I do in my kitchen. So there's flour, it gets sprinkled on at some point, whether I'm kneading it or shaping it. You know, so it doesn't take like a genius to figure out how to make bread. So how is it possible that there are so many baking cookbooks? How is it possible that there's so many different recipes for bread and styles of bread? It's because you can change things like the ingredients a little bit. You can use, instead of all-purpose flour, 10% whole wheat flour, add a little bit of spelt flour, add a little bit of sorghum, add a little bit of corn, shape it in a unique way, make a video that's fun and engaging, showing you shape it in a unique way, take a picture that's tantalizing and mouth-watering, do something funny, you know, like that's how I get, sorry, you know, my recipes out there to the world. Because, you know, the romance period with pan de coco has been over for a while. And it's like, oh, like after that kind of went down and my book's out, and it's like, okay, how do I continue to shake things up? Because consumers forget about you pretty quickly, actually. So it's like, you know, I before my book came out, I was posting to my blog. I posted like 3 recipes a month, 4 recipes a month. I was crushing it, man. I had all kinds of boom, content, videos, doing. Then after the book came out, I was like, man, I've got like this content hangover right now. I'm going to take a little break from posting recipes. And they're ruthless. They're just like, you don't post anymore. You don't do, and I'm like, hey, it's like, this is part of the creative process here. I'm trying, how much more uniqueness can I bring to the table every single day when it comes to making bread? You need time to figure out a new delivery mechanism. And so getting a new camera works, finding a new filming style works. Adam, YouTube is something I never really got into, particularly because I've got a TV contract that like makes it weird, because it can kind of compete with what I do for the network. But it's just, now you look at TikTok and look at these short, reels or whatever. I can't just post a picture to Instagram anymore. No one cares about that. No one wants to see a picture of a loaf of bread anymore. They want to see a 30-second video that's chopped up into these 0.5-second fragments with trending music on it. That's what it's become. And I'm like, either you sink or swim. So what am I going to do? I have to keep the train moving here, and I've got to use whatever delivery mechanism is going to get my recipes exposure. So there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how the world would be different if it was really easy in international jurisprudence to patent or copyright a recipe formulation, right? The whole content marketplace would be radically different. You think about the typical like online text-based recipe that you find when you go out and you Google something and you're just like, how do I make cornbread or whatever? And you'll get a website, and then there will be this incredibly long preamble where the author is telling you all about like their mom's cornbread and their grandma's cornbread and what it means to them, and all these like beautiful photos that are nice, but like you kind of don't really care. You just sort of want to get to like the quantities and the method, and you have to scroll down, and then finally you find it at the bottom. And everybody thinks that the reason online recipes are like that is because the people who write them are self-absorbed. And I mean, well, that may be the case, or it may not be the case, depending on the person, but that's not what's going on there. What's going on there is that the recipe formulation is unmonetizable, right? It's not only is it not something that a person can copyright, it is also a very small bit of text, and it's very difficult to expose the viewer to multiple ad impressions with which to generate money off of that little tiny bit of text, because it's just one screen. You're not going to do much scrolling across it. It's not something terribly involved. So what they have to do is beef out the page with a whole bunch of preamble and a whole bunch of photos that even if you don't read, you are at least going to scroll by them. And as you scroll past all of the ads that are there, those impressions will be recorded, and the person who wrote that recipe will hopefully get some money for all of their hard work. And that basic phenomenon that is just kind of one of these things, it's like that and leaf blowers are like the two most universally annoying things that people don't like. That's a result of the legal framework that we have created for ourselves with regard to the product that the person there is making, the undeniably tremendously valuable product that person is making, which is that recipe for the cornbread, right? You want that, you need that, that's a thing that society needs. But we have made it tremendously difficult to monetize, and copyright is part of why. And I think that's unfortunate, but I don't have any better ideas.
So I want to talk about, you talked a little bit about, like, for example, with the blog where, there's lots of words and content, and those differ depending on the different, author of the blog. But one of the things that you both do is that you actually both create content in a sense for multiple platforms. Adam, you have YouTube. I stalked both of your Instagram pages. I've seen your websites, your blog. So creating content for multiple platforms. So how do you kind of decide what goes where, and what are some of the different creative considerations for each medium? And whoever wants to jump in, I don't assign.
That's definitely an interesting question, because I kind of attack my delivery comes from many different avenues, I would say. And I think fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know which one it is, my blog has become the least important. I never took the steps necessary to monetize it, because it just, I don't know why. I just was like, whatever. I didn't feel like dealing with it. And different projects start to pile up. And the money gets really good when you do different things. You might do books or, TV or podcasts. And so I start to kind of immerse myself in so many different delivery mechanisms that I do struggle to find time to create basically a free recipe. Now that, again, it's my fault for not monetizing my website, but I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what, either I take the time to really deconstruct that website, probably get it on WordPress or something like that, and whip it up into shape, or I devote my time into the other platforms that I use and deliver my recipes through there. So it might be a Recipe Club podcast with David Chang, or it might be the show with Magnolia Network, or it might be through the cookbooks. Obviously, my next book's 150 recipes. Where am I going to, again, it goes back to the same thing. How many recipes are there in the world? How many loaves of bread or pastries can I create and concoct out of thin air and publish as my own? So, I've done 35 in New World Sourdough. I'm doing 150 in this other book. I've got probably some 20, 40 recipes on my blog. I'm doing 10 recipes for my TV show. Where is that creativity going to come from to kind of keep all of those engines going? So it's kind of, to me, it's just strategic. I'm like, the book is the most important thing I could do right now, focusing on Latin American baking only. So I'm going to save all my juicy, delicious, awesome recipes for that book, and I'm going to tease them on my social media. I might show you what I'm doing, but I'm not going to give you the recipe yet. And people are just going to have to wait another year or two until that book finally comes out. So that's just the strategy that I'm using in terms of delivering across different platforms. Sorry, it's not really a strategy. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, most of the time, but that's how it goes down for me.
Yeah, I hear that. In a similar ad hoc stumbling my way through it way, I suppose I use, my Instagram to tease the product that I can monetize. Like, Bryan can actually sell a book. Like, it's much harder to sell an Instagram picture, right? I can sell a video on YouTube, right? Like that is where my bread is buttered, and that is because again, like what I'm selling is not the recipe really. It's the video, and the video is a thing that I can exercise intellectual property rights over. It's also the case that video exists in a place where there is a functioning extrajudicial mechanism for adjudicating copyright claims, namely YouTube's content rights management systems, which are, we could say all kinds of terrible things about them, but at least they exist. And it's a way for me to, if someone is stealing my stuff and trying to make money off of it, I have a way to combat that in a way that would be much harder with a text-based recipe on the internet or a picture on Instagram or something like that. No infrastructure for that. Am I really going to hire a lawyer to go and sue this person? So yeah, it's an example of how legal considerations that go back to the founders and copyright being in the Constitution that resonate in really weird technology and business practices that we're doing today. It's crazy.
Yeah, so you both talked a bit about well, not a bit. We both talked about monetizing, and obviously that is something that is very important to creators, and something that copyright is designed to incentivize economic incentives. But I also know, I think from watching some of your content and hearing some of your story, that economic incentives are not your only reason for creating the content that you do. So can you share with us some of your other inspirations as to sort of why you create, what you create, how you create, and what you want people to take away from that? And I'll just also say this, we've got a lot of questions from the audience, so this will be my last question, and then I want to try to get to some other people.
Yeah, I'll be quick on this one. I mean, to be honest, my inspiration is nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, I'm inspired by my parents, my family, my mom, my culture, my heritage. I've grown up in Louisiana. Being an Afro Latino person is not the easiest thing in the world. There's a lot of discrimination there, but I was always proud of where I come from. I was always having my Honduras flag on my backpack at school, even though I know I'd get made fun of. That's it. It's just I'm just proud of where I come from, and I want to always bring that with me wherever I go.
For me, I make things. That's just kind of what I've done since I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid and I showed some, ability with writing music, I sort of, I was encouraged. I was lucky enough to be encouraged in that. And it led me to what turned out to be the erroneous conclusion that like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to write string quartets or whatever, right? But then this thing happened where, also like, I did other kinds of music that had a chance of making money. But this thing happened where like bringing it back to money and copyright, it's all related. Like this thing happened where the recorded music industry became something where you could not make money anymore because essentially technology obviated the law, right? It made the law virtually unenforceable in terms of protecting people's rights to sell their music, recorded music. And so then from that, my fallback plan for music was journalism, which that's how I made some really poor life choices. And then I did journalism for a while until technology completely destroyed that economy and the ability of people to exercise their copyright over their articles and the information that they report. So then because I like to make things, I make food and I like to make videos. And then I found a market for that scratches the same itch that is an impulse to make stuff and be creative. And I'm just waiting until technology completely destroys this business too. And I'll see what I move on to after that.
Thank you both for that. I'm looking through some of the questions that we have from the audience, and I'll start with the first. It's for you, Adam. It actually asks, what are your plans for the future of your channel? You may have talked to that just a little bit right now in your answer, but maybe you want to address it.
Honestly, and this is, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about this because, some people are bothered by how aggressively I monetize my content, and that is really informed by my experience having come from like 2 destroyed industries, and really everyone who's worked in journalism, everyone who's been a reporter, especially a local reporter, in the last 20 or 30 years, we're all dealing with a collective trauma of the total destruction of our industry and our livelihood and the thing that we valued and thought was so important to society. And society turned out when the rubber met the road and they were presented with opportunities to pay for what we do, and they chose not, which means they didn't really value it that much all along. And the trauma of having lived through that and seeing all these really, really dedicated people see their careers just vanish and then have to go and bag groceries and stuff was real rough. And I live with that fear that will happen to the way that I feed my family now at any moment. And so, no, I'm not, I feel very fortunate that I found a place where I am able to exercise my copyright over my product, and I am able to make money from it as a result. And I will ride that dolphin for as long as I can. And I think that as a viewer of other people's content or consumer of other people's content that gets monetized in various ways, I try to be real happy that someone, when I see a sponsorship or something, instead of being annoyed by it, I try to be real happy that somebody else is paying that person so that I don't have to. Mm-hmm. And that this content that I like has, for the moment, a thriving economy to support it, because I know how transient that is.
Yeah. And the next question we have, Bryan, is for you. And it asks, it says, I have a hard time eating sourdough bread because of the sourness taste. what type of sourdough bread would you recommend that has the most mild flavor? And I think this is a really cool question for you, considering how the work that you've done, with sourdough and definitely bringing it to a wider audience. So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that specifically is not necessarily about the type of bread you want to make, but it's more about the process. So you can make a sourdough croissant or a pan de coco or a rustic loaf or a focaccia or a pizza, whatever it is. You can make any bread in the world, naan, whatever it is. But the way that you utilize your leavening, your sourdough itself, is what's going to actually deliver the tangy flavor. So, I could literally talk for 45 minutes about this one question, so I will try to condense this into a minute. You build your leaven, your sourdough starter. It's a naturally occurring system of wild yeasts, and the longer you let it rise after feeding it, the more mature it will get, the more pungent it will be. However, if you use your sourdough starter within 3 to 4 hours of feeding it, you're not necessarily going to get the most sour flavor from your sourdough starter, but you will get the leavening abilities. It will enable your bread to rise when you mix it into your dough. Now, when you get to that final dough, if you use the fridge to do a long cold fermentation, you're going to get a nice sour flavor. If you do your mix and let it rest at room temperature for 3 to 4 hours and then proof it for 2 to 3 hours, you're going to get a milder yet still equally delicious flavor. So it's all about manipulating time and temperature to derive what flavor profile you actually want to get. And again, if you really, to give you an easy answer, just make like a brioche, or make a cinnamon roll with your sourdough starter. It'll be sweet. Just add a bunch of sugar to it. It'll be delicious.
Sugar is great. I'll concur. I am not a chef, but I like sugar. Okay, so another question for the both of you is, it says, do the chefs ever create a dish that is a signature dish that has a look and feel that you do not want copied?
What do you think, Bryan?
Sorry, could you rephrase that? Could you repeat that real quick?
Sure, I'll sort of paraphrase. And they ask if you have a signature dish that you've created that has a look and feel that you don't want others to copy.
Yeah, mine is very simple. The answer is no. I want everyone to make what I make. My purpose is to bring Latin American baking forward. So like, if someone copies what I do, I'd be like, yo, that's dope. Like, do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because at the end of the day, you can't be Artisan Bryan, man. You can't be me.
Yeah.
You can make my bread. You could do whatever you want, but you can't be me. And so that kind of thing I've never felt threatened by.
Yeah, it's funny. I suppose at this point I have a couple of techniques with which I am associated in internet land, right? Like, so one example is kind of the opposite of what Bryan just described in terms of mitigating sourness in a sourdough, which is that I'll make pizza dough with just, off the shelf active dry yeast, and then I stick it in the refrigerator and I leave it there for a week. And you get a lot of the same biological processes, those acetic acid producing bacteria that make sourdough sour, but they just happen in there with commercial yeast and absolutely no effort, as long as you put it in the fridge and forget about it for a week, right? Now, I'm sure that did I get that idea from someone else? I don't think I did. I think I kind of stumbled into that, but has someone done that before me? Oh, of course, right? And so like, I couldn't possibly claim to own that. And some people sometimes I'll get like DMs from, fans who will say like, hey, I saw this, this other YouTuber biting your rhyme and, doing that sourdough pizza in the fridge kind of thing. And I'm just like, dude, I don't own that. No one owns that. That's, and I'm here to give people ideas and help them cook in the same way that lots of other people have given me ideas and helped me cook. But then again, that rather, la attitude that I just expressed there, that both of us just expressed there, comes from the fact that neither of us makes our living by developing recipe formulations. You make your living by developing content that refers to those recipe formulations. And again, it is the legal framework that has pulled the strings on our behavior and our careers and led us to that way of being in the world and finding a place for ourselves in the market. And maybe I wouldn't be so share alike, in terms of my attitudes with my recipes, if my recipes were the things that put the roof over my kid's head,
Yeah. And I guess it kind of also goes to your point in some of the considerations that you were making in your presentation in terms of, the originator versus the populator versus ethical considerations. Those things are not necessarily copyright, but I guess you could consider them to be adjacent, but also, just sort of how we move in society. And we also want to encourage creativity. We want to encourage societal culture and development. So all of those things I would suggest probably go into that. Here is a question that asks, can you talk about where the line is between instructions and protectable descriptive language that might be protectable by copyright?
That sounds like a question for you, Jalen.
It does. It seems clear that the language has nothing to do with the recipe. Let's see, that the recipe is protecting, for example, deliciously crisp and golden on the outside and soft and creamy inside. It's easy to make and makes the best breakfast or brunch for friends and family. But what about instructions on the best method of whisking? I guess I can talk to this a little bit, and I would love to hear your perspectives as well, being people who create descriptions of recipes and methods. So copyright doesn't protect ideas, it doesn't protect methods or formulas, and all of these are things that are basically what would go into creating a recipe. And so we want these things to be free and available for everyone to use and develop new works. What copyright does protect are those what we consider to be creative expressions. So that would be the images, the descriptive text that you would see perhaps in a recipe or a video or an actual image of a recipe or a final produced dish. And so that would sort of be the line. There's not always a black and white sort of clear line as to when we've gone into the descriptive and creative versus the purely technical recitation of the formula or the recipe or the list of ingredients. So it's not always necessarily a bright line, but there is some distinction between the creative and the descriptive text. And so maybe Adam and Bryan can talk about, and they actually did this a little bit, but maybe you want to talk about it a little bit more, some of the considerations into why you might use some descriptive text. I think we talked about images a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think that's why, because, it's in practice, images and videos are much easier to copyright or to exercise legal control over, right? Because imagine, so let's say that like my recipe, the very, very dry text recitation of the ingredients and procedure, a judge says, no, that's not subject to copyright, right? What if I were to do exactly that, but stare at a camera and say it out loud? I doubt any judge would say that's not subject to copyright. And yet it's the same thing. It's kind of an anti-text bias that is built into either the text of the law or the life of the law. Do I have that right, Jalen? Am I wrong?
And I'll also say there are definitely different types of work. So even to the extent that you're viewing a camera and speaking, there are other creative elements, and now you've gone beyond a purely text work to a motion picture or an audio visual work. So it could be that there are just more creative elements that would go into building that particular type of work. So Bryan, did you have any thoughts on that? Sort of why you're thinking about the creative descriptions or words that you're using to describe your recipes?
I just try to keep it simple and inject my personality into what I say. I don't particularly want or try to recreate wheels that have been, there's only so many times you can say something is delicious or something is mouth-watering or whatever, So I'm just like, this is what it is. I'm making pan de muerto today. You already know what it is, man. Check it out. And I use kind of my personality and then the video or picture itself for people to just like associate the two, as opposed to doing like, have you ever been to Mexico and had this tantalizing sweetbread that's made with butter and sugar? It's like, it is what it is. Like, I typically try to just avoid that for most of my content.
Okay, and I see we have 2 minutes left, so I'll ask one more question, and I think this is a good one for both of you. If you could go back in time and offer advice to yourself on the day you recorded your first video or wrote your first recipe, what would you tell yourself?
I'll just shoot for this one first. I don't, that's weird. That's weird. That's like some philosophical stuff, right? I mean, because if you alter yourself, are you going to be yourself? And I think I'm one of those people that it is what it is. It happens how it happens, and there's no other way it could have happened. So I don't know. I mean, I'd be a voyeur or something. I just watch myself do things. I don't know that I would say anything, because there's nothing I would change about what happened. Mistakes, failures, successes, bad videos, bad camera, bad lighting, bad this, bad that. You can only learn to make it better by having it bad at first. So I would just say, just do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, go for it.
Yeah. When your life and your career turn out well, it's hard to have regrets about missteps that you took, because they were integral to the process of getting you there. I think that successful people who I know and I've talked to, what you tend to see among them is, what do they regret? They don't regret mistakes they made that hurt themselves or made themselves look foolish, or they regret things they did that hurt other people. They regret how they treated other people. Those are the things that keep them up at night. Those things that keep myself up at night sometimes. So if I could tell myself something, I would say, be nicer, shut up more, don't interrupt people. Because when you're young and you feel that you have something to offer the world, you're worried you're not going to get your chance. And so you're aggressive and you try to get out there and claim your place in the space, whether the space is a video economy or the space is a meeting where you are one of several participants and you just get in there and you've got to give your say. I wish I had more confidence that eventually I would get my chance, and that I could have just chilled out and passed the mic to other people instead.
Great words of advice from both of you. Thank you so much for joining us, Adam and Bryan. We really appreciate your time, your creativity, all that you've added to this program. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions. But again, thank you so much. Thank you to our audience. If you could please fill out the post-event survey. That would be really great. We would love that. And then other than that, we'll see you at the next Copyright Office Presents. Thank you so much.
Good talking, y'all. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.